Okay, welcome everybody. So, let's see. So today we're going to go over some more Excel functions that may be helpful when doing financial statements. I did one in July, and that was one of the more popular downloads, so I thought I would cover some more functions. So previous Wednesdays, July 1, we covered too much, and then July 15th, we did a couple of Excel functions. I'm going to just do a couple more today, although I'll mention several. And just a reminder that recordings are available on our Excel Statements YouTube channel. So I thought I'd talk about round and trunk and formatting numbers on the screen, cell formats for numbers, because I know I've gotten questions on that in the past. And then I'm just going to mention some ifs, count ifs, and maybe I'll go over those on a future day. I'm not really prepared to show those today. I have a couple of ideas, and if someone in particular wants to see something on those, then I can do that in the Q&A as well. And then some what I call string functions. I think Excel calls them text functions. And my guess is you may have worked with some of these already. And then some date functions. And I'm going to probably spend most of the time, well, half the time in the demo on those. Okay, and version 3 is still scheduled for later this month. Not much to say about it other than that. And okay, so I just did like a trial balance of the income statement accounts here, and you should recognize all this other stuff in here. And so I've got current period, which in this case period 11 is November, and then I've got last period in here as well. So just using the period month function in there, and then my PTD vals. This column for the period and this column for the period -1. And I did a couple of other things here. So I went down and yeah, maybe this would have been good. There weren't many payroll expense accounts in here. So maybe, yeah, let's use this one. So I'm just going to copy this down to here, and I'll copy this one. Or I could have just copied this one over to here. Okay, so this is the number of work days in the month. Okay, so I'm using an Excel function called NETWORKDAYS, and that needs to know the starting date, the ending date, and then optionally you can tell it holidays as well. So to get the starting date, this is an Excel statements function, period end, and you can see that needs to know the company, the fiscal year, and the period. So I'm saying the period end date for the last period, and then I'm adding a 1 to that. So that'll get me the first day of this period. And then I'm saying the period end date of the current period. Okay, so my starting date is the day after the last day of the previous period. And I'm sorry, the day after, and then it's the last day of this period. And if your periods are all just months, you don't necessarily have to do it this way. It might be simpler for you to say, oh, end of month, which is EO month. That's another Excel function. EO month of this period, from EO month of last period +1 through EO month this period. But I'm doing it this way because it's certainly possible that you're not using each month as a period. Maybe you have 13 4-week periods, or maybe you're doing 13 periods where you've got 4 weeks in some and 5 weeks in other. And if that sounds strange to you, it happens all the time. So it may be something you don't need for your company, but a lot of companies want something like that, so they can typically they can work off of weeks as well. So doing it this way, that's going to work. Even if your period is from the 3rd of the month through the 29th of the month, this is still going to work correctly for you. And then the holidays, you notice over here, it's color coding that green. This is where it's getting the holidays from. And so, like I said, this is optional, but you just put a list here of the holiday dates that are not part of your normal working days. And, this could be obviously 11 or 12 or whatever. And then it will take those into account as well. And so you can see then for November, it said, okay, there were 20 working days. So it's excluding weekend days, and then it's excluding any holidays that it finds in that period as well. So I've seen people do this manually where they need a number like this. So just to let you know, there is a function in Excel that can do this automatically. That's kind of neat. When you go to a new fiscal year or a new year, you'll have to go in and change your holidays. And you notice when I'm pointing to that, because I'm using similar functions here, I'm not using exactly the same function because I'm adjusting for the period -1 here, and then I've got the period -2 here. And if you wanted to use the same function, you could do that here, but you'd have to have the period you're looking at in that column somewhere so you could point at it. So you need to have period here. Whoops, forgot the equal sign. And then equals period -1 here. Okay, and then you could just point to those numbers for the period, and then you could use the same function here and here. And of course, pointing to these, you would, well, in this case, you've only got one row, but just for best practices, you would say absolute row and relative column. Yeah, so that's how you get that number. And then what I've done down here, yeah, this is more useful. The sales numbers are all wacky in this demo database, but we're basically saying that productive labor, we paid $32,318 per working day in October and $33,768 per working day in November. And of course I can go change this and you'll see those numbers. Yeah, this is why I wasn't using that, because they don't have any labor expenses in period 12 in here. So so that's one. Here's something I didn't really talk about, but here I've got account 3030, and I'm using this in 2 rows, and I'm breaking it out. And so this one, I'm saying, give me that balance for that account where the subaccount looks like, and question mark means any character here, and then 440, and then anything after that. And the subaccounts in this demo database, that would be the second segment here. The subaccount, it's got 2 characters, and then 3 characters, and then I think 2 characters, and then 1 character, if I remember correctly. So I could do that as well. We're going to get the same number. XLstatements knows how to parse subaccounts apart. It knows if you're using the separator or not. It can work with what you've got in there. And so this case, this is the second segment, and I just over here, this is an XLstatements function subseg description, and so it needs the company ID, and then it wants to know the second, it wants to know the segment number. And so, like I said, this is the second segment of the subaccount in this dummy company. And then what value are you looking for. And in this case, we're using numeric values in our subaccount, but just to be safe, I would recommend putting quotes around it. If you're not using numbers, then it won't know how to interpret something. So if you had, I don't know, RET in there for the ID for that subaccount, you have to put quotes around it, because otherwise XLstatements thinks maybe you're talking about a cell name or something like that. And then you notice I did that here because here I'm saying break that out. And then for the row name here, I'm using that subseg disk, the same one we saw over here. And so that's what we're concatenating. So the account name is sales income. And then I'm saying, oh, and space dash space, and then give me the sub segment name for the second segment for the ID of 440. And I think people probably know where that comes from. And so we're appending or concatenating on this retail operations here. And so here, you know, we're overriding whatever subaccount is chosen up here. And then down here, what I said was, okay, give it to me for the subaccounts that we're looking at. In this case, it's all subaccounts, and then subtract this number from that. Okay, so I probably would have been better off here using an asterisk. You're going to get the same number, but this way, if I go in and choose, you know, some subaccount that doesn't exist, or where there aren't transactions for this account, then we're still seeing this. So we're overriding whatever is being used for subaccount in the rest of the report. Is that clear? Does that seem helpful to people? What am I doing here? I want all subaccounts. And I'm missing those for some reason. Well, anyway. So you can see what I did here. Okay. And again, I could use the same, you know, I changed this. I could just copy these over there. And again, have the same numbers. And of course, this has to do with using absolute and relative references. So when I copied this, this says minus C8, I copied this over, and so it's saying minus E8, because without the dollar signs there, it's saying, well, what's a relative position? So it's one above me. You know, C8 is one above here, and E8 is one above here. So not using any dollar signs on that. What else did I say I was going to cover? Let's go back here. Oh, left, right, mid, proper, trim. Okay. Oh, round and trunk. Yeah, I think I have. Yeah, I have a sample page on those as well. So yes. So I put some numbers in here. Okay. And then I've got a sum of those down here. And so if you're showing your financials and everything is to the penny, you know, then this is going to give you the right number down here. Something that's fairly often requested, particularly from very large companies, and obviously these are large numbers, so we assume this is a large company, is, oh, I want on my balance sheet, I just want to show thousands. And you know, maybe you're reporting up to the SEC and they just want to see thousands. So how did I get this changed? This is saying, give me the same number here. So what I did was, in the cell format here, this is a custom format. The normal format would have been #, comma, #, 0. And that would give me, the comma means put commas in every 3 places, you know, for your millions, your thousands, and so forth. The 0 here means show it as a 0, or always show me that final digit. And the custom part here is I put a comma after it. And what that does is it moves it up. It moves it over like 3 characters. So you can see what we're seeing here. We're just seeing thousands. And if I put another comma in, then we're going to see millions. So I doubt there are any companies out there big enough to need that. But so that's how I'm saying, oh, just display thousands. Well, the issue with doing that, and this is why I use these numbers, so this one says that's 0, you know, rounding down, and then it says, oh, my sum is 120,124,000, and that doesn't foot with the numbers being summed. And people are used to having this issue all the time with decimal places, because it's probably more common to leave off the decimal places. So you've got your format here. So I've got a format here where I'm saying don't show me any decimal places. And I didn't make it that way. I just used these here, so you can go, you know, up and down. And so I just went down twice to get rid of the decimal places, and that created you can see that created a custom format. And you know, you can always go see what that format is by right-clicking and going to cell format, and that'll show you what format it's using. Okay, so I started out with this is the accounting format. This is the shortcut to that. Otherwise, you know, it's here as well. So the accounting format, that's what puts parentheses around negative numbers. And that's what puts dash, that's what this is, this third argument here. It puts dashes in for zeros. And so that's what I typically use on financials. I haven't heard anyone complain about it. But you know, if you want to see zeros, you know, then you're not going to use the accounting format for this. You'd use, you know, like decimal format or something like that. So this is the other issue. This is where it's more where it's more commonly seen, is where we're leaving off those decimal places. So it's you know, 499 plus 490, it's coming up with 990, which is obviously not correct. So how do you fix that? Because if you have picky people looking at your reports, their trust in you may not be as full if they add things up and they're not getting the same numbers as are on the financial. So you have to use a function, and so that's what I'm doing over here. So I'm saying round the number. So again, pointing at this same number. All of these are pointing at the numbers in column E. Round that, and 0 means how many decimal places I want to round that to. So here, I'm actually changing what's in the number in that cell by using this Excel function on it. And then, you know, the same thing here. And then our total is going to be of those change numbers now, as opposed to the numbers that we're pointing at, because we're not just pointing at them, we're changing them as well. And doing the same thing here. So here I'm saying truncate, and I don't know how well documented it is. There are a couple ways to do this, but I'm saying truncate that, and I'm saying -3. So I don't know how well documented using a negative number there is, but basically I'm saying truncate that to the thousands. So the number in here, I'm going to go change the format again. The number in there is now actually, you know, 120,123,000, because we've truncated. We've said move back 3 characters. So truncate with a positive number essentially does the same thing as round. So if I said, you know, truncate E52, I would see the same number rounded to the decimal, to 2 decimal places. but I'd like to use this. They have another function called mround, which works the same way, but I'm a terrible typist, so I look for the fastest way to do things, the least amount of typing. So here I'm saying round that to the closest 1,000. And you can see we've got the same number here. So m round does the same thing, gives me the same result. It's just I like to use trunc with -3. Although, maybe that's not as clear to someone looking at your workbook. They'd have to know what it means to use trunc with a negative number. And here, maybe this is a little bit more understandable because we're saying round to the closest 1,000. And with these, you can see we're getting the number that we want to see down here. Instead of 120,124,000, we're getting the actual 120,123. I'll just copy this. I like to use format pater for something like this. So I'm copying that format back up over that cell as well. And then we can use the same format here. I mean, we're getting the same result anyway. And so we're seeing exactly the same thing in these two by using the same formatting, by using different functions, but those two functions work the same way. Okay. And then again, round, I could have used trunc there as well. I believe that would give me the same number. Yeah. Right? So instead of seeing 990, which these don't add up to, well, wait a minute, do these? Yeah, yeah. I was thinking these are my round, but I overwrote my round instead of putting a new column in. Okay, is that clear to people? Is that helpful? Any feedback at all? Any questions about this? Or any questions that people have saved up for Wednesday? We're gonna make this the shortest webinar yet. Nothing? Remember to unmute yourself. Nope. Okay. See you next week.